What's up, all my movie-loving maniacs? This your boy Bangful B of the Lassiter Factor, and today I'm going to talk about Sin City, which recently celebrated its 20th anniversary, and I went back and rewatched it, so let's review. Sin City is based on the graphic novel by celebrated comic book writer Frank Miller, and this movie is basically an anthology of those different stories from that graphic novel, from the Customer is Right, That Yellow Bastard, The Hard Goodbye, and The Big Fat Kill. This movie covers those four stories in which it all takes place in this fictional city called Basin City, Sin City for short. And it basically goes into the crime underbelly of all these morally gray or morally complicated characters. Now, I remember when this movie first came out, when I saw it, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it's essentially a film noir, but it's a film noir that's never been made on this scale, and it's basically beat for beat exactly like the graphic novel. I mean, all the storyboards were basically all from the graphic novel, but generally speaking, this is one of those movies that I've always gravitated towards for visual purposes and for story purposes. I mean, this movie is directed by Robert Rodriguez, who he's made some movies that I wasn't quite a big fan of, but most of his hits are the movies that I gravitate towards, and this movie is one of those. In fact, it might just be my favorite movie of his. But he also brought on Frank Miller, who is, like I said, the writer of the original novel, to basically ensure him that his visual flair for the graphic novels is present in this movie. I mean, this movie is essentially a living, breathing graphic novel. And Robert Rodriguez even brought in his friend Quentin Tarantino to direct one scene, which I will get into in a little bit. But like I said, I've always loved this movie, and watching this movie 20 years later, I still love it to this day. I even remember when I was in college, I studied this movie, particularly, I think, for one of my filmmaking class. But one of the other things I love about this movie is just it's just the vibe of this movie. It's over the top and it's campy at times, but I also love the non-linear storytelling within this movie, which is probably why they brought Quentin Tarantino in this movie, because this movie is, in a way, inspired by Pulp Fiction with its storylines and how they're told out of order. And yet they still feel like isolated stories, and at times even more isolated than Pulp Fiction. And with the many characters within this movie, they are played by great actors, both small and big. Because I tell you, this really is a stacked cast, from Bruce Willis, Jessica Alba, Clive Revel, Benicio del Toro, who looks unrecognizable in this movie, Mickey Rourke, who is also unrecognizable in this movie, Rosario Dawson, the late Brittany Murphy, the late Powers Booth, Alexis Bledel, Josh Hartnett, Devin Aoki, Michael Madsen for a brief moment, Carla Gugino, who played the mother in Spy Kids, and I tell you, the first scene you seen her in, I remember when I was younger and thinking, wait, that's the mom from Spy Kids. And now the first story within this movie is The Customer is Always Right, in which you have Josh Hartnett in this movie, in which he's kind of like a hitman. He basically opens the movie and bookends the movie, in which he's on the elevator with Alexis Bledel's character, but more on her in a little bit. But I thought Josh Hartnett, he was good in this movie. In fact, thinking about it now, he might as well be playing the same character he played in Trap. In fact, this movie is essentially his origin story for that character in that movie. Now, you got The Hard Goodbye, which focuses on Marv, played by Mickey Rourke, and he's just very psychotic. He's kind of a loner, and one night with Goldie, who is at the top right here, but then she gets killed, and so Marv pretty much spends the entire movie trying to figure out who killed her, and then at the bottom is her twin sister, both of these roles played by Jamie King. But generally speaking, The Hard Goodbye with Marv is at times my favorite within the stories within this movie, and then my second favorite is Hardigan's story. I go back and forth which one I like more, but watching with adult eyes, that might change. I'll explain in a little bit. But Marv picks a fight with Elijah Wood's character in this movie, in which he's the one that killed Goldie. And I remember watching this back in 2005, seeing him hot off of The Lord of the Rings, and this movie right here is definitely a testament to Elijah Wood's range as an actor. Then the next story after that is Dwight, played by Clive Revel, in which his story is The Big Fat Kill, in which he goes after Benicio del Toro's character, Jackie Boy, in which he finds himself in the Old Town, which is basically a jurisdiction for hookers to not be essayed by people and not messed with by the cops. But Jackie Boy ends up getting himself killed, and they find out that he works for the cops, and so they try to take care of the body. But then the authorities found out, which are led by the late Michael Clark Duncan. Rest in peace. Some of these hookers are played by Rosario Dawson, who plays Gail in the movie and the main love interest of Clive Revel's character, and she clearly had fun with this movie. There's also Dev Aoki, who plays Miho, who is also an assassin, and she is definitely a badass in this movie. Probably I like this role for her more than Too Fast, Too Furious. And then finally, there's That Yellow Bastard, which focuses on Hartigan, played by Bruce Willis, in which also, his story actually, with Josh Hartnett's story, bookends and starts the movie, in which we see him a couple of years earlier. He's trying to save a little girl from being essayed by Rourke Jr., who is the son of the senator of Sin City. But in doing so, he gets framed as a child molester, gets sent to prison for years until he finds out that Junior is still looking for Nancy, in which she is played by Jessica Alba, and a lot of teenage boys from the mid-2000s, myself included, appreciate it very much. But she plays Nancy, who is a little girl that got kidnapped and almost molested, and she grows up to be a stripper. But of course, Hartigan finds her, in which that leads he unintentionally leads her to Junior, in which earlier in the movie he had his pecker shut off and they fixed him, but it had some side effects in which they made him deformed and turned yellow, and yeah, he's still after her. There is so much in this movie to gush about, but I'm not gonna gush about it no more. If you have not seen this movie, go watch it. It's worth seeing, and it is to me, this movie is a masterclass on visual filmmaking and graphic novel adaptations. This movie is definitely one of a kind. And after you watch it, go and watch the behind the scenes, because this movie is almost entirely shot on green screen, and it's amazing how this movie looks like it. For a film noir, it looked like it was not shot on location. It really is shot on all green screen. To me, Sin City easily gets the hands up emoji because it is a masterpiece. Thank y'all so much for watching. Have you seen Sin City? If so, let me know what you think in the comments section below. This is your boy Bangful B of the Lassiter Factor. Stay safe, wash your hands, peace.